Hi guys. All right. So the last thing we learned about with angles was about complementary angles. And we remember that they equal 90 degrees. So they're angles that add up to 90 degrees. So they make a right angle. We're just kind of reviewing what we learned last. Now, our other types of angles that we have are straight and full angles that we've been talking about. So complementary angles are add up to a right angle or 90 degrees. Today, we're going to be moving on past that. Today, we're going to be focusing on straight angles. So we're going to be working on something new, and I'll tell you the word for it. But we're going to be really remembering that straight angles equal 180 degrees. So that's really important. Straight angles equal 180 degrees. All right. So, just like complementary angles add up to 90 degrees, supplementary angles are the exact same thing, except for that they add up to 180 degrees. They add up to a straight angle. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today, is supplementary angles that add up to 180 degrees. So angles whose sum equals 180 degrees, or just angles that add to 180 degrees. So if you're understanding complementary angles pretty well, it's the exact same idea, but now it just adds up to 180 degrees. And so an illustration of that would be if I've got a straight angle, I know that this is a straight angle, two angles, so maybe this is angle 1 and 2, those two angles make the straight line, so these two angles have to add up to 180. So this one might be 120 degrees, and this one might be 60 degrees, and 120 plus 60 equals 180. So other examples using just numbers could be 100 degrees and 80 degrees. 100 plus 80 equals 180. Another example could be 90 degrees and 90 degrees. Those add to 180, so those are supplementary angles. Remember, just like with complementary angles, supplementary angles can have three angles too. It doesn't just have to be two angles, it can be three. So it could be like an angle with a measure of 100 degrees, an angle with a measure of 50 degrees, and an angle with a measure of 30 degrees. So 100 plus 50 plus 30 equals 180. So all of those are examples of supplementary angles because all of these add to 180. Non-examples, 100 degrees and 20 degrees. That just equals 120. Those aren't supplementary because together they don't make 180. If you put those angles together, it would not be a straight line. Okay? All right. So think to yourself, how many degrees are in supplementary angles? How many degrees are in supplementary angles? Think, how many degrees are in supplementary angles? If you said 180, nice job, you're getting the hang of it. So answer this. Supplementary angles add up to what? What do supplementary angles add up to? 180. All right, so write possible angle measures for 1 and 2. Remember, they have to add up to 180. Pause the video. Think of two angle measures that these could be 1 and 2. What could these possible angle measures be? What could they be? What could they be? Well, this one could be 120 or 30. Let's do 130. I don't know why. And this one could be 50 degrees. But there's lots of other options. If you said 100 degrees and 80 degrees. If you said 101 degrees and 79 degrees. That's all great. As long as it adds up to 180 and would make a straight line, it's perfect. Okay, so we're going to practice a couple questions. Just like complementary angles, we can write equations to find supplementary angles. So I know that this whole angle together, it makes a straight line. How many degrees are in a straight line? 180. So I know that this whole thing is 180 degrees. And I know that the part that makes the straight line is 161 degrees. This one right here, it's kind of little. Plus x. So x plus 161 equals 180. In order to be able to solve this, to make this really easy on ourselves, how we can think about it is that x must equal 180 minus the part that we know. The part that we know is 161. So x has to equal 180 minus 161, which would mean that x equals 19, because you subtract 180 minus 161. All right, so what I did here, just to review what I did, is I know that the whole thing is 180 degrees. I want to figure out what this part is. I know that this part is 161. I need to figure out how many more degrees I need to get to the whole 180. So I did 180 minus 161, and x has to equal 19 degrees in there, because together they're 180. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here. We know, because it's a straight line, it's 180 degrees, right? So I'm going to say, okay, what is x? Well, it has to equal the whole thing. The whole thing is 180 degrees. It has to equal that whole thing minus the part that we know. Minus the part that we know. The part that we know is 164. 164. So we're subtracting 164. So 180 minus 164. I could do this in parts. I could say, okay, I know that I would need 6 more to get to 170, then 10 more to get to 180. So the x is 16 degrees. So I'm going to write in here 16 degrees. Okay, because 16 plus 164 equals 180. The whole thing is 180. All right, and remember, you can be using calculators on this. What we're working on is knowing how to work with the angles. It's not necessarily knowing how to calculate and do the adding and subtracting and stuff. Okay, so again, I'm trying to figure out x. I know that since it's a straight line, this equals 180 degrees, the whole thing. I want to figure out what x is, so I take away 156 degrees. To figure out what 180 minus 156 is, I think, okay, how many more do I need to get from 156 to 180? The answer is 24. So this has to be 24 degrees. All right, this last one you are going to do on your own. So remember, actually take a minute to pause the video, solve it if you need some extra time. Pause it, actually solve it. Okay, hopefully you paused the video. So we're trying to figure out what x is. We know that the whole thing is 180. And we're taking away the part we know, which is 73. Oops, gosh. Let me write that nicer. 180 minus 73. And if you got x equals, what would it be? So I got 100, 107. If you got 107, that's what x is. Awesome. So something I do want to point out, so the answer to this one, sorry, before I move on, would be 107 degrees. Something I do want to point out before we kind of move on and maybe get them confused is that complementary always equals 90 degrees. Supplementary always equals 180 degrees. So if you get confused, if you're like, is complementary 90 or 180? Is supplementary 90 or 180? How you can remember this is that C comes first in the alphabet and 90 comes first on the number line. Okay, so C comes first in the alphabet and it goes with the smaller number that would come first on the number line. S comes second, or not second, comes later in the alphabet, comes after C in the alphabet, and 180 comes after C, or comes after 90 on the number line. Confusing myself. So C comes before S, 90 comes before 180. Okay. So we're kind of practicing these angles separately. You practice complementary angles, now you're practicing supplementary angles, but it is helpful to know individually and to be able to tell, okay, complementary is 90, supplementary is 180. And this is something that you're going to use through 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. And if you can kind of get the hang of this now and understand subtracting angles from each other now, it'll really help you in the future. Nice. Okay. Good luck, guys. Hopefully you watched this whole video, and remember, go back, replay it, pause it if you need to when you're doing your assignment.